Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA stories. In this video, an HOA Karen called the police on me because I supposedly look too poor to be in the neighborhood. Let's dive right into the story to find out what happened. So my father taught me the importance of investments and how they can be worth it in the long run. I have a real estate license, but most of my income is passive from owning land and residential buildings. However, my father also taught me the importance of remaining humble. I've never been a show-off and I've enjoyed quite a normal life despite how much money was in my bank account. I'm smart enough to know how privileged I am with what I do, so you will rarely catch me wearing designer brands or driving a fancy sports car or something. Which got me in some trouble not too long ago in a surprising situation. You see, I was spending time together with one of my friends who live in a very upscale gated community. For context, we live in the Philippines, so there's not too many of these kinds of communities. My friend had just moved and he invited me over to see his new place after he settled in. I was taking a break from working and whatnot, so it ended up being the perfect timing. Now keep in mind that my company and I owned the land that this gated community sat on. All I was wearing was a simple pair of cargo shorts, t-shirts and some sandals. On the more casual side, but who dresses up anyway just to see their friend? Halfway through the day I had forgotten the housewarming gift for my friend in my car, so I went to go retrieve it. There was guest parking since this was a gated/HOA community, so it was about a 3-minute walk from his house. No big deal, right? Well, as I was walking back to my friend's house, I was stopped by what I call a Karen. She immediately started questioning me and wanting to know what I was doing in this neighborhood. "Who are you? I don't think I've seen you before," Karen said, eyeing me up and down. She did not say it outright, but I could tell that she was judging me based on my casual outfit. After all, she was all dressed up with a Louis Vuitton bag on her shoulder. "Oh, I'm just visiting my friend," I replied, short and to the point, but still trying to be polite. "No, you're not. And what is in the bag? You're suspicious and I will have you know this is a very tight HOA community," she accused. "Yeah, I know. Like I said, I'm visiting my friend." I start walking away, hoping that this Karen would just drop the situation. "Stop! If you keep walking, I will call security. I know you don't belong here." At this point I was super irritated. I mean, I was just minding my own business. Who did this lady think she was? I walked a few more steps and sure enough, Karen pulled out her phone and dialed the security number for the complex, telling them that there was a trespasser looking suspicious and being aggressive. I really did not want this to escalate, so I stayed where I was and waited for security to show up. Security then shows up just a few minutes later and starts asking what's going on. Karen tells them that I'm a trespasser who is up to no good and that I have a bag with suspicious items. How ridiculous, but of course I just wanted it to end, so I opened the bag to show the security guard what was in there. "Look man, I'm just here visiting my friend, I don't know what she is on about and you can even search for me or my car. There is nothing suspicious there. You need to escort him off the premises. He is trespassing. This is supposed to be a safe and quiet community." Karen exploded. She was getting frustrated that nothing was really happening. Even the security guard had a "what the hell" look on his face at her antics. "Ma'am, this is a safe and quiet community. This man is just minding his business and hanging out with a friend. He is allowed to do that. Besides, you're the one yelling, not him." The security guard told her as a matter of fact. Karen wasted no time. Her face was fuming and her fists balled up as she stared at us with a twitch in her eye. You might think I'm being funny, but I'm not even exaggerating. In a split second after this, she pulls her phone out and calls the police. I was bewildered. The situation had escalated so fast in such a short amount of time over nothing. At this point, the police officers pull up and my friend comes out to see what is taking so long. I start recording as I explain the situation to the police officers and again, to prove my innocence, invite them to search me and my car. Karen tries so hard to make me look guilty of something, anything, so she does not look like an ass, but everyone is annoyed and you could tell the police officers were already not believing her BS. My friend chimes in and even confirms that I am there to visit him. "Come on, look at his wretched clothes. He looks disgustingly poor, like a beggar. He's a trespasser. This is a nice community and it should stay that way." The other HOA board members will not stand for this. She screams at the police officers. Well, funny enough that you say that. I'm a real estate investor and a property developer that just so happens to own this plot of land. So yes, why don't we call out the rest of the HOA board members and ask them what they think? I snapped at her. I could not even help it, it just came out. I was never one to flaunt my accomplishments or what I do for a living, but as soon as I heard that she was a board member, I just lost it. The police officers issued her a warning for wasting police resources and making false accusations without any proof. Karen stormed off pissed that she did not get away with accusing me of something. I still don't know what she thought she was gonna get out of that, but it was weird and entitled behavior that I will never understand. That night though, I posted the recorded video on my social media. I don't have a huge following, but I had a decent number of followers. Because of this, the video went viral and the gated complex started receiving a lot of negative attention. That was obviously not my intention, as I just wanted to call out Karen's weird and ugly behavior. However, it ended up working out because not only did the board terminate her from her board position, but they also kicked her out of the complex. Meaning that because of the whole situation and her actions, she had to find another place to live. My friend tells me that after my video came out, a few residents of the complex came forward with stories of Karen abusing her HOA power and being overall rude to other residents. Now it is a much more enjoyable place to live and justice was served to Karen. And yeah guys, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video, leave a comment and maybe even subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much in advance, and the next one is titled HOA Karen Loses Popularity Contest. Posted by user notry7108 on r/Ripestories. So my dad lives in one of those cookie cutter suburbs found on the outskirts of any big US city. His neighborhood has an HOA of which he is a member, and over the years he has maintained a stellar relationship with the HOA overall. That was until Karen arrived as the new HOA president. To give a bit of background, my dad did great raising us kids and worked hard to retire and use his spare time to help out in the community. He walks his dog twice a day in the neighborhood and knows just about everyone, their kids and of course their dogs. My dad would help anyone and he does everything for his neighborhood, from helping to run the annual garage sale to maintaining the community pool to helping to plant trees, etc. My dad gets the call for extra hands and to help in the neighborhood wherever needed. See, my dad is very valuable to the neighborhood because he was trained in his younger years as a handyman and a carpenter. To add to that, before his passing, my grandfather owned a private chain of hardware stores. This means my dad has about every tool you can think of, which he'd happily use to fix up the neighborhood or to let a neighbor borrow. This is where the trouble started. My dad had too many tools and too small of a garage space for all of them. He also had more projects around the neighborhood requiring the use of bigger machines and tools which he used to tackle the various things that would come up. That is when my dad determined that he needed an outdoor shed to help house all of his extra tools. My dad went ahead and built a modest 6 by 8 feet shed at the back of his property that ran up against the street. The backyard had high fences and the shed would be surrounded by pine trees, which would make the structure not visible from either neighbor or the street. His design made it more look like one of those tiny kids' playhouses than a typical shed housing tools. He would even paint it to match the house and provide appropriate roofing to match as well. It was not a week before my dad got a visit from Karen. Karen, you cannot have that building out back. My dad, why not? It is not visible from the street. I designed it to look like my house, and as you know, Karen, I donate tools and time to the neighborhood to assist with various projects here. And this will allow me to house more of my tools here and provide more resources for the community. Karen, it is against the rules, and if you don't remove it by the end of the month, you will be fined. My dad, that seems aggressive. Don't you have a small playhouse in your backyard for your daughter too? This building is approximately the same size. Karen, that is different. Get rid of it or we will fine you. Karen had a big smug grin and gave my dad a notice about the upcoming penalty if he didn't do what she wanted. You see, when Karen took over, suddenly the HOA started cracking down on various frivolous things throughout the neighborhood. Your bush is too tall, your trash cans need to be put away by exactly 7 p.m. every night, your door is the wrong shade of red, etc. Regardless though, my dad was pretty frustrated, but there was something Karen said that made him start to think something different, so my dad started doing some digging into the HOA rules, and that is when he found the magic line. In regards to art. Art installations were allowed in a member's backyard, and the rule itself did not specify a size limitation to how big those art pieces could be. Here's a bonus: my mom is an artist and my dad got to work immediately. He covered the side of the shed in license plates and he added a window to the door in the shape of an octagon. Something was missing though, and when he looked at his new shed design, it made it look more like an oversized birdhouse. So he had my mom install a 7-foot-tall bird statue made entirely of license plates with a smiley face of ceramic and a giant vibrant purple feather boa. Now the gaudy bird statue was visible by both the neighbors and from the busy street behind their house. The very next day, Karen came back. "Karen, what is that thing in your backyard and why is your structure still there?" My dad replied, "It is an art installation." "Karen, you have to remove it immediately. It is against the rules." "No, it is not." "Yes, it is." "No, I looked into the HOA rules and I'm allowed to install an art installation onto the backyard of my property." That is exactly what I've done, and the best part is, this installation can also house all of my tools. Karen's face got very red and she got very upset. And then after a moment, she got another smug grin on her face. "Karen, we will vote on this in our upcoming HOA meeting in 2 weeks' time." My dad knew what Karen was gonna do. She was gonna propose a vote to change the HOA rules and to get my dad's shed removed and or fined. She walked away, leaving him a lot to think about. Karen, however, did not know about my dad's secret weapon, margaritas. My dad, being like any retired man, had a love of margaritas, so much so that he made himself a little cart in the garage on wheels with all of his margarita making supplies. The neighbors also knew that my dad liked margaritas, and it became a thing that whenever dad has the garage door open and a particular pirate flag on the mailbox, he was making margaritas in the driveway. And by the way, I would certainly not say no to that. Anyway, spontaneous neighborhood driveway gatherings were therefore pretty common for my dad, and my dad did what he does best. So every couple days, he put out the flag, rolled the margarita cart into the driveway, plopped down a chair, and waited. All week he met various neighbors and invited them to another margarita outing the day of the big community vote. That day finally came, and boy did the neighbors show up. My dad had the HOA board meeting so full, there were people lined up outside, unable to get into the room where they met. Karen, shocked at the number of people there, was none the wiser that these were all the folks my dad helped and befriended within the neighborhood. Karen then started the meeting and a few minutes in jumped right into the vote about the HOA rule on art installations and my dad's gaudy art install. "Karen, all in favor of having D remove the art installation?" She smiled and looked around as a few of her friends raised hands, but no one in the crowd did. "Karen, all of those against?" The entire room of hands shot up. She overwhelmingly lost. My dad could have brought a quarter of the people who showed up and they still would have beat her handedly. Following this, Karen's term as HOA president was brief, as she was quickly removed and a new neighbor stepped in to take over. I'm not sure what happened to Karen in the end, but I would not be surprised if she moved briefly after. And the next one is titled "Karen Scams Art Store and Ends Up Getting Trespassed." Posted by user Sophosnera on r/Ripestories, our own subreddit. Now, a little context. Some of this story was told to me by others, as I was not there every time the customer came to the store. This also happened a few years ago, but the interaction is still fresh in my mind. So I, 20 female, worked at a little pop-up shop in a local mall over Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's holiday. The shop sold paintings ranging from $50 to $1,000. There was usually one staff member at a time in the shop, and it was our job to help customers answer questions about paintings and restock the shelves. One faithful night, I was sitting at the desk when a woman, which I shall nickname Karen, came in and bought at least $2,000 worth of paintings. She was kind and talkative, and she asked all sorts of questions about me, the paintings, and eventually the return policy of the shop. At the time, the policy was until the pop-up shop closed that all paintings would be accepted for returns, which is what I told her. A couple weeks passed and the shop started adding discounts to all our paintings as we wanted our stock gone. Now this is the part that was told to me later. Karen often returned to the store, usually to return paintings, other times to buy more at the discounted price. At one time, while the paintings were at least 50% off, Karen returned to the store and returned numerous paintings. Only then to buy the same paintings at the discounted price. This was reported to our manager, who contacted our local supervisor, and a no-return policy was implemented and signs were posted numerous places within the tiny shop. Now back to when I was at the shop, our discounts were nearly at 80% off and the store was quite bare. It was late and my manager was coming in to help me close up when in walked Karen. She had with her numerous paintings and asked to return the paintings. I informed her of our no-return policy, to which she became upset about, quoting my earlier statements of returns accepted until we closed. I told her the policy had changed and she said that she had bought the painting before the policy and that she should be allowed to return the paintings. I once again told her of the policy and like all Karens, she requested to speak to my manager, who, by the way, I was in contact with this whole time via text. I told Karen that she would be in soon. At the same time, my manager told me to try and flag down security. I was unable to do so as I couldn't leave the shop and security guards were not walking by the shop. I continued to try and placate the woman, but she was getting increasingly upset that I would not allow her to return her paintings. I was beginning to shake, both from anxiety and adrenaline. Finally, my boss arrived and said the same thing I had told her, that we would not be accepting any returns and the policy had changed. Karen began to cry out that she was told she could return paintings until the time the shop closed and was once again told the new policy. She was told to leave the shop, which she refused to do so. It was at that point that I managed to flag down a security guard who joined the confrontation. My manager could see me shaking and excused me to the back where I could calm down. I did so gratefully and gave myself a few minutes to calm my shaking hands and pounding heart. Once I was feeling calm enough, I returned to find Karen just outside the shop with arms folded. I asked my manager what was going on and she let me know the police had been called. She then asked if I was okay and asked if I wanted to go home early, saying she was okay to close up alone. Still full of adrenaline and not feeling very good, I accepted and left. A week or two later, I asked my boss what had happened after I left. She told me the police had come and was informed of the situation. They told her that they would abide by the no-return policy and that she was henceforth trespassing. She left, still saying that she should be allowed to return the paintings due to what I told her months before. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. Neighbors constantly trespassed on my property. To use my pool without permission, I built a huge fence. I am a 26-year-old female who lives on her own. About a year ago, I received an inheritance that was a blessing to me. I saved about 1/4 of it, which was still a pretty hefty amount. With the amount I did not save, I was able to pay off some debt and move into a new house. It helped me stop living paycheck to paycheck, and I was forever grateful that I had come across this inheritance. The house I bought was beautiful and it felt like a safe place to come back to after work or being out for the day. I never felt like this when I was living in my crappy apartment. And another big win, the house came with a pool. I never considered myself a swimmer, but the pool was calling my name every single day. It helped me relax and actually lose quite a bit of weight. If the weather let me swim every day, I definitely would. However, there was one major issue: the family next door. Shortly after I moved in, the couple next door came knocking on my door, introducing themselves to me. Their names were Mitch and Kim, and while they seemed friendly at first, it soon became clear that they almost felt entitled to my property. Kim had told me over a couple of cups of coffee that the previous owner was an elderly couple and that they would let the kids come over and play in the pool. The couple's grown children had moved to different states all across the US and they did not like the quiet. It made sense if they were lonely and missing their kids. It gave them some sort of companionship. However, that was not the case for me. There was nothing more that I loved than being able to come home and relax in the peace and quiet. Besides this, I'm a pretty introverted person. There is a reason why I have only had a couple of close friends I like to spend time with. And not only that, but I just felt slightly uncomfortable at someone coming into my backyard whenever they wanted to. I know they were just kids, but like I said, I really value my quiet and alone time. I politely let the parents know that I was uncomfortable with it, and while it was not anything personal, how could it be? I did not really know them yet, I just had introverted tendencies. However, I was willing to compromise slightly and told them they could come over occasionally as long as they did not take advantage of the compromise. The only condition was that I had to be in the backyard or in the pool, as I really did not feel comfortable with anyone being on my property without my presence. Well, no shocker, they did take advantage. Cut to a couple of weeks later, when the kids were out of school for summer break. Every time I was out in my pool, it was only a matter of minutes before the kids were coming over to swim. Even if I had friends or family members over, they were there. I tried to be understanding because they were just kids, but it seemed like Mitch and Kim were not doing anything to prevent this, or they did not even explain to the kids that they were allowed to come over occasionally. I dealt with it for a while, except I started getting really irritated when Mitch and Kim would come over to swim as well. At this point, it really felt like they were trespassing on my property. On one day in particular, Mitch came over by himself when my best friend and I were spending the afternoon hanging out by the pool. It already felt uncomfortable being as that we were two females alone. It should not have had to feel uncomfortable in my own house, but it gets even worse. When I was getting out of the pool, Mitch made a gross comment about how well I filled out my bikini. This was the last straw for me. I immediately let him know that he needed to leave because my friend and I were going out for the night. I did not miss the way he eyed both of us as he walked back to his house. I started discussing with my friend what I could do to stop this. I was not a very confrontational person, but I needed to stop this. She suggested that I build a fence with a gate so that only people who would have a key to the gate would be able to enter the backyard. I was also planning on getting a dog, so I wanted to make sure that my pet would be safe. Well, cut to about a week after, when my friends and brother came over to help me start digging holes for privacy hatches and installing the fence. Kim ran over right away and saw what was going on. She immediately started questioning me and said that the fence would make it harder for the kids to come over and play in the pool. I told her that I was aware and that this was the whole point of putting up the fence. She started pulling some fake tears and nearly choked up when she told me that "You are going to deprive the kids of our pool." Now, as I said, I'm not a confrontational person, but in this instance I was. I let her know that it was not our pool, but that it was my pool. I told her how I said in the beginning the kids could come over occasionally and how they took advantage of that. Not only that, but so did her and her husband. She was not happy to hear this, and I let her know that my friend and I were not happy to hear Mitch make gross comments about us in our bikinis. She was livid. But guess what? Now I am enjoying my pool without my neighbors taking advantage or gawking at me. Oh, and they will also not speak to me anymore either. Win-win. And as you know, Ripe stars, more often than not, fences make really good neighbors, especially in this case. However, I'm curious, if you would be in OP situation and some neighbor would constantly trespass on your property to make use of your pool, what would you have done? And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripestories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much, and I will see you again tomorrow.